My wife cheated, shattering our family and leading to heartbreak, revenge, and a new beginning. Last year, on Father's Day, it began like any other. I was up early, sipping my coffee, waiting for my wife and teenage daughters to join me. For years, I made sure Mother's Day was a full-on celebration for Kathy. Mimosas for breakfast, a fancy cheese plate for lunch, and her favorite steak dinner. As the girls grew older, I'd taken on more responsibility in pampering Kathy, planning the day all by myself. Father's Day was quieter. Kathy usually cooked me a special breakfast, but last year, something was different. I waited in the kitchen, sipping on coffee, starving as the minutes ticked by. She eventually woke up, came downstairs, and gave me a kiss. It felt brief, almost rehearsed, like a formality. Then she set to work on breakfast, but it was rushed. Even the eggs tasted off. We still had our lunch, though, some quirky little cafe with Doctor Who-themed sandwiches. Kathy had always been the calendar keeper in our home. She was the one who orchestrated every birthday party, holiday, and anniversary with precision. I trusted her to manage our life with that same efficiency. She always had everything planned down to the tiniest details. But when she noticed that my birthday fell on Father's Day, she gave me a flippant joke about double gifts and promised something special. I was excited, honestly. She teased me with those promises during foreplay, but on days like Father's Day, there was always something extra. But something felt off that day. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I noticed the subtle shift in her. She'd been acting strange for a few weeks. At first, I chalked it up to stress or maybe just being too busy with the kids. But it wasn't just that. She was working late more often than usual, dressing up more. I'd catch her applying makeup even when she didn't have plans. Kathy worked at a small bakery in town, a place where makeup and high heels were overkill. I dismissed the changes at first, but there was a gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. The tipping point came that Friday evening. Kathy came downstairs in a new skirt, tan stockings, and heels. Her hair was freshly done, and she looked like she was ready for a night out. I whistled, admiring her, and assumed we had plans. "Are we going somewhere tonight?" She blinked at me, almost startled, and then smiled quickly. "Oh no, I'm going out with some coworkers. Just a little thing after work." That's when the alarms went off in my head. We never did things like that. Our entire relationship had always been about spending time together. If one of us was out, it was a family affair, or at least something we'd talk about. This was out of the blue. "Why didn't you mention this earlier?" I asked, a little too casually. She hesitated just for a split second. "Oh, then just asked me today," she explained, adjusting the hem of her skirt. "I thought I'd just pop by for a bit." I nodded, watching her. It wasn't the words. It was her whole demeanor. The way she avoided eye contact, the rush in her movements, the slight tension in her voice. She was hiding something, but I wasn't ready to confront it yet. I didn't want to believe what my gut was telling me. When she came home that night, it was near midnight. Her hair was hastily tied up in a bun, and she looked different. She brushed past me, muttering something about being tired, and went straight to the shower. My mind raced, but I didn't confront her then. I needed more than just a hunch. The next morning, she didn't even wake up to say goodbye when I left for work. I stood there staring at her sleeping form, wondering when things had started to change. Was it gradual, or had I just been too distracted to notice? At the store, I tried to push the thoughts aside, focusing on my routine. That's when Missy, our bright-eyed morning barista, caught me at the entrance. Missy had worked at the store for a while now, always bubbly and cheerful. She was the kind of person you couldn't help but like. "Hey, Bill," she called out. "You okay? You look like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders." I forced a smile. "Just a lot on my mind, Missy. Nothing big." She tilted her head, her blue eyes full of concern. "But I got something that'll fix that," she said, hurrying off to make my usual coffee. I appreciated her gesture, but my mind was elsewhere. As I made my rounds of the store, checking in on the team, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Kathy's behavior wasn't normal. And then, like a bad itch, the thought crept into my head. Was she cheating? I pushed it away, unwilling to go down that road. But once that seed was planted, it started to grow. That afternoon, Kathy and the girls were heading to a concert. It had been planned for weeks, but I had forgotten about it until I saw them heading out. Normally, I would have gone with them. After the strange Friday night, I decided to stay home. It gave me time to think, time to piece together the growing suspicion. When they left, I found myself pacing the house. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I checked her email, but found nothing unusual. Her text and call logs were off limits, thanks to her password-protected phone. I searched through her clothes, but didn't find anything that would confirm my suspicions. I was starting to feel like a paranoid fool. Then, a memory hit me. Friday night, when she came home late, she had been wearing that new skirt, but her hair was undone as if she had thrown it up in haste. That wasn't like her. Something about that moment gnawed at me. Sunday morning came, and it was Father's Day. I sat outside on the terrace with my coffee, wondering what the day would bring. My girls and Kathy were already awake, packing up for a beach trip. A beach trip? I asked, surprised, on Father's Day. Jill, my youngest, piped up. Yeah, Dad, we're going with some other families. Mom planned it last week. I nodded, but a sour feeling bubbled in my stomach. Kathy didn't even acknowledge the fact that it was my birthday and Father's Day. Not you, card. I was used to forgetting dates. I wasn't great with them, Kathy. Never. The day passed and Kathy hadn't reached out. I went to IHOP alone, surrounded by happy families celebrating Father's Day. It felt like a punch to the gut. Afterward, I drove home, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Monday morning came and I couldn't take it anymore. I called in a favor from a buddy who worked security at a local PI firm. I need you to keep an eye on Kathy, I said, hating the words as they left my mouth. He didn't ask questions, just agreed to help. A few days later, the PI called me. Bill, I've got something you need to see. My heart sank. He sent over the pictures, a series of shots of Kathy meeting a man outside a restaurant. He was younger, maybe early 30s, blonde, and they were definitely more than just friends. One shot showed them in a tight embrace and another caught them mid-kiss. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. Kathy had been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. And now I had the proof. That night, I didn't confront her right away. I sat in the living room, waiting for her to return from yet another late shift. When she finally walked in, I stood up and looked her in the eyes. What's his name? I asked, my voice barely steady. Her face paled. She stammered, What? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Kathy. I know, I've seen the pictures. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. I waited for an explanation, anything that would make this make sense. But she just stood there silent. And in that silence, everything between us shattered. The days that followed were a blur. I filed for divorce and Kathy moved out, staying with friends. The girls were confused and angry, not understanding why their mother had left or why I had kicked her out. I didn't have the heart to tell them the full truth, not yet. As the divorce process dragged on, I found myself turning to Missy more often. She had become a friend, someone I could talk to about the mess my life had become. One evening, over coffee, she asked me how I was holding up. I'm managing, I said, though it was a lie. You deserve better, she said softly, her hand brushing mine across the table. I didn't know how to respond, but something about her words stuck with me. Maybe I did deserve better. Maybe I deserved more than a wife who had lied to me, who had betrayed me. In the end, the divorce went through without much of a fight. Kathy tried to apologize, tried to explain that it had been a mistake, that she hadn't meant for it to go this far. But by then I was done. The damage was irreparable. As the dust settled, Missy and I grew closer. She became more than just a friend. We started dating, cautiously at first, but eventually it felt right. My daughters, once angry at me for pushing Kathy away, slowly began to understand the truth. It wasn't easy, but we rebuilt our relationship, and they even warmed to Missy. Looking back, I realized that Kathy's betrayal wasn't the end of me. It hurt deeply, but it also opened the door to a new beginning. A fresh start with someone who truly cared about me.